My name is Erin Colburn. I'm the pre-health advising coordinator for the College of Health Science at Boise State University. I'm excited to offer this workshop for the third time in a row. We are so excited. Some of us who have done this a couple of times here, we love this workshop, so we appreciate you all coming and participating. I'm gonna let the Zoom folks introduce themselves, and then I will introduce the folks that are in the room that will be sharing in the presentation today. Kelsey, why don't you take it away and share with us who you are?
Of course. Hello. My name is Kelsey Nelson, and I'm with Boise State Career Services. I'm one of those folks who've done this. This is the third time. And so it's been so cool to see the value that students have gotten out of this personal statement. So I'm really excited to be here today.
Great. Kelly.
Yeah, hi, my name is Kelly Gould. I am a career counselor also with Career Services, and I'm also one of the quote unquote tenured of this workshop, which has been fantastic to meet all the awesome, wonderful, ambitious students that come through here. And I'm excited to help you all learn more about personal statements.
Awesome. And then we have two other speakers here. Let's see if I can get this. Shannon, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Shannon Kerr, academic advisor. I work primarily with freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. And this is my second one?
Yep.
Yep, this is my second time. So not quite tenured, but I'm getting there.
And then we have Ian. Ian, share with us who you are.
Hello, I'm Ian. I'm a senior public health major. I'm a peer advisor in the College of Health Sciences Advising Office. And I also do research at the Center for Health Policy on campus.
And he graduates this spring. We miss him terribly, but he's also going to go off to public health graduate degree. Woohoo! Congrats! All right. Well, we appreciate your time here. What we're going to do is go ahead and get started. We just have a couple of quick goals just so you know what we're trying to do today. Oops, got a little ahead of myself. So we're going to give you some information on how to get started. We're also going to give you some typical best practices, what things you should and shouldn't do, what to avoid, and then typical questions that other students have. We have perspective. We have students who've done this before, and this is a conglomerate of all of those ideas. So what we would like to do first is spend about 5 minutes writing. That is what we're doing. We're writing. I mean, the personal statement is all about writing. So what we want you to do is spend 5 minutes writing about what motivated you to be ... It could be physician, it could be epidemiologist, it could be PA, whatever it is. What motivated you? Don't just tell us because you want to help people, because that is the reason you are all here. It's what everybody tells us. Okay, so think for 5 minutes, type, write. We'll pause the video. We're going to give you about 5 minutes, so that would be 2:12, and then we're going to come back. All right. Oh, I've asked it too much. I've asked too much of it. It's stuck. All right, you're done, right? Personal statement, all written. 30 seconds, easy steps, right? No. But this is a good starting place, because here's the thing. You just have to get started. That is the hardest, most traumatic issue or problem that we have. It's the hardest part, is getting started. I don't know why this is stuck. Hang on 1 second. Let's try this. Don't know why it got stuck. Technical difficulties. Okay, why? Sorry, folks. I'm gonna have to outsmart it. Try a little bit later and see if we can get it to do what it's supposed to do. Okay. So the first part is asking, well, why? Why do I have to write a personal statement, Erin? Well, your grades are telling one story to the application process. Your test scores are telling another story. and you need to tell your story. This is your chance. This is the admissions committee's way of looking at you in a new lens, okay? Personal statements are your totality. They're not just your grades. And in fact, you'll learn as we start talking that we don't want you to talk about your grades in your personal statement. Let your grades talk for themselves, okay? So your personal statement is you. What makes you and defines you? It's your bottom line. What makes you stand out? Why are you unique? I tell my kids all the time that they are not special. My own kids, I'm so mean. I'm the most terrible mom on the face of the planet. Yes, I am. I tell them, I say, you're not special. Not everybody gets a trophy. Not everybody wins. Okay? You're not special. I say, but you are unique. You're a mixture of my genes and my husband's genes. And you are different than your sister. And you are different than your brother. And you're different than somebody else. You are all unique. You're not special, but you're unique. And you have something to tell them about that uniqueness, what you see, your perspective, and you need to do it in a positive way. It takes 10 negatives to make one, takes 10 positives, sorry folks, to make one negative go away. 10. Someone says something totally negative to you, it hurts, but you don't forget it until someone busts you up after 10 positives. If you put a negative in your personal statement, that's all they're going to read. That's all they're going to see. So we want to try and remedy that. We want it to be a positive aspect of you. Okay, I'm going to see if the slideshow will. Nope, we're going to have to play it the old way. Oh, that makes me so sad. Okay, sorry guys. All right. Why am I writing it? Why do I want to be in healthcare? Because I want to help people. Yes, you do, but you can help people lots of different ways, right? You can be a social worker. You can be a nurse. You can be a teacher. You can be an academic advisor. Okay? How do you want to help people is defined by the roles that you want to play, and your personal statement can accentuate that. Okay? So we're going to have you think about this from the perspective of the student. I brought Ian here today because he's done this. He's been where you are right now. He's been at the precipice. Ian, you mentioned something to me that you wanted to say a disclaimer. You told me, you said, it's so hard to get started, Aaron. What else did you say? What were you afraid of?
If you think about it, it's like, it's your big chance. You're in full control here. Right, well, you have a high chance of getting it. If you don't take your time. Scary process to get started. Getting things on paper to start. It's not your first go at it. It's not going to be what you submit. I had at least 8 or 9 drafts in my personal statement. I had multiple people look over it from, Kelsey, she helped me a lot. I had the writing center look at it briefly, professors. I think it's important to have, a family or a friend look at it too. But yes, I understand there's probably lots of fear in your mind right now as you're starting this new journey. I know I had it this last year. So yeah, I wish you guys the best of luck. You'll do just fine. Just make sure you take your time with it. I'll put it together.
So what I heard Ian share with you all is a couple of things. One, he was scared too. And that he did feel the enormity of what this was. And he knew how important it was. And he did a lot of drafts. So it isn't a one-liner. It's not, you can't bullshit your way through this. You can't just put a whole bunch of stuff on paper and have people believe that that is you. You need to take the time. And so that's why we provide this workshop early in the process. You don't typically apply to most medical, to most programs, to most professional schools or graduate schools until the summer, sometimes even in the fall. But starting now is a good place to start, okay? And getting something on paper, even if you realize that it may change. Be okay with the change and be okay with the criticisms you might get from others. I told a student today, don't marry it. Don't commit to it and be like, this is it. This is my baby. No, you can't touch it. Okay, you can't do that. You really do need to focus on realizing that this is something that's going to morph just as we grow and change. So the personal statement as well. All right, I am going to shift the speaking over to Miss Kelsey, I believe.
Yep, that's right. Please let me know if just with audio, if I need to slow down or speak a little louder, just let me know. But we thought we would start with the mechanics of it. First things first, this lovely acronym that is very, 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 very important to remember. Read the gosh darn question. This is one, it is surprisingly common. I mean, I can speak anecdotally how many personal statements or essay prompts or things that I've seen or essay responses I've seen that don't actually follow the prompt, right? To Ian's point earlier, this is something that can be really challenging. And so sometimes like you get on a flow and you're talking about yourself in a way that you've never talked about yourself before in prose, and it can just be a lot. It's sometimes you have this beautiful narrative and then you realize it doesn't actually answer the question. Don't delete it. Don't delete what you wrote. That is very important brainstorming that you've done. Save that, right? But make sure that you go through and actually read the question and answer the prompt. Medical schools, dental schools, pharmacy schools, optometry schools, they may not necessarily have a prompt, where some other programs might have a prompt that they want you to answer. So it's really important to determine if there's a prompt and if you follow it. And that's one of the great examples why it's so important to stay organized with this process, right? Not just organized on what schools you're applying to and what they require, but also organized in terms of what they actually want on these personal statements. Now, in terms of setting achievable expectations on length of time, like Erin said, this is why we're bringing this forward in the process early on to help you get started. Think about this, right? You're getting ready to apply to these programs and you've put in hundreds, maybe thousands of hours preparing for these applications, right? Through your coursework, through your campus involvement, being involved in the community, you've put in all of this work. Make sure to give yourself the time to get this done. Give yourself the time to write, to draft, to get feedback, to edit, to rewrite. This is something that can be challenging because you're not just writing an essay on a topic that you're studying. You know yourself the best. However, it's one thing to kind of think thoughts and know your experience, another one to write on paper. It can be really tough. It can be tough for me as well. I will call that out. And so it's just one of those where it takes mental energy, and make sure that you give yourself an appropriate amount of time to kind of brainstorm and really get your creative juices flowing. Now, in terms of number of drafts, I believe I heard Ian say that he had 9 drafts. I've yet to meet a student who's done less than 5 or 6 major revisions on a personal statement, like substantial revisions to content, to structure, to themes. You'll never know what emerges as you're writing, right? You're taking thoughts in your head and putting it on paper. You never know what's going to emerge, after the first time around. It's very common that a student sees what they write, they like it, and then they start to notice other things. They start to notice other themes. They start to notice other qualities that are coming out. Give yourself some time to go through several drafts of this. It's not uncommon to have 6, 7, 8, 9 drafts. Now, who should look it over is very dependent on yourself and what you're looking for. And this is one that I definitely encourage students to be careful about. I first tell students to ask themselves what they need out of the feedback. So is it mainly structure? Is it vocabulary? Is it just general feedback? Whatever the case. And then kind of pick your people from there. It could be people like Erin, it could be Kelly or myself from Career Services, really anyone from Career Services, the Writing Center, maybe a trusted like faculty member, potentially a friend, potentially a parent. And I put potentially on here because as much as we love our parents, sometimes they won't give as much feedback, but they will give affirmation. So just know, what you're hoping out of the people that you're getting feedback from. And then on top of it, committees are looking for depth. This means that they're not kind of looking at like your work and activity section in prose, right? They want to know some depth. They want to know how those experiences impacted you. I'm going to throw out a scary word there, vulnerability. I'll never tell a student to share something that they don't want to share or they're uncomfortable sharing. However, sometimes a little bit of vulnerability can help you express really what you're trying to convey to the committee. Now, there are lots and lots of prompts that are available. And again, it's important to get familiar with the programs that you're looking for and be pretty organized. You never know if a personal statement for one program or one application could be edited, modified for another. So all brainstorming is good brainstorming in my eyes. So like I mentioned earlier, sometimes there isn't a prompt. Sometimes prompts will ask, explain why you wish to attend a particular school. Is from the list of activities and experiences you listed on your AMCAS application, please select one of them that has the most impacted your decision to enter medicine. What research or independent academic work have you completed, and what did you accomplish or learn? What do you think the role of a physician is in the community? Describe a humbling experience and what you learned from it. These all require some deep reflection. And so by you giving yourself the space for that, you'll be able to really answer these questions effectively.
And Kelsey, if I could just add quickly.
Yes, please do.
Medicine, dentistry, PA, so physician assistant, those are typically free writes. Those are typically no prompts. The PT schools, OT schools, veterinarian schools, they have prompts. And they can change them. So you can't just go on last year's prompts. So like you want to be close to your application to determine what the prompt might be. You might ask your pre-health advisor, hi, that's me and Shannon, if we know what the new prompt's going to be, because we often get that notice a little bit ahead of the game. And the personal statement is going to be general for most cases. Public health master's degree applications, they can tailor them to different programs because they have multiple supplemental applications. But in most cases, you're not going to cater it to a school. You're going to write one general prompt. So keep that in mind. And when we get to the do's and don'ts, we could talk a little bit about how we write that humbling experience out in a personal statement.
Okay. So we have all seen students talk about any and all of these things on their applications. Again, because you are a unique candidate, you do bring unique experience to the table. And so the reason we put this on here is just to kind of get some gears turning. If you don't talk about these things in your personal statement, that's okay. If you do, that's also okay. These are just here to kind of help get some gears going, help you think about how you can share your experience with the committee. Now, there's everything from customer service and thinking about how customer service plays into the healthcare system, jobs, whether they be full-time, part-time, temporary jobs, internships, volunteer experience in and outside of the hospital, service learning, extracurricular activities. So what are you doing in addition to your classes? Maybe you studied abroad, maybe you're doing research. You can use any of these things in your personal statement. And more, of course. And I do want to reiterate here that it might seem a little daunting. And that's, again, okay. That's 100% okay, because you are being asked to take your experience into 4,000 characters. And there are a lot of different ways to do that. And so this is just kind of a list to help you start thinking about different ways that work for you. Here's a little quiz with an answer already there. Which is better to include in a personal statement, volunteerism in a hospital or volunteerism outside of the hospital? This is one that I've seen impact students before on their personal statement, thinking that if they spent 200 hours volunteering in a hospital, as well as 200 hours volunteering for like the Agency for New Americans or Girls on the Run, sometimes students think that in a personal statement, it has to be centralized around your experience in healthcare. And although that is definitely a strategy and it is important to tie back to your experience to answer the question, both are great options as long as it is meaningful, as long as you are able to convey what you hope to convey with that example. Don't think that the best option is the one that is in healthcare, because that might not be the case. So give yourself a little room to play around and know that you are getting experience and meaning from so many different avenues. And so you can decide what you hope to share with the committee.
No. Oh, we did it finally. Oh,
Here we go. Which is it, friends?
Maybe.
Maybe. Oh no.
Dang it.
Well, this
fine.
is where gonna pass off to Kelly.
All right. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Okay, so we're gonna do another quick writing break. So, oh, cool, I'm spotlighted, wonderful. So, this is a list that professional schools have said they're kind of looking for in their applicants. So what we want you to do right now is go ahead, pick one or a couple of these and really dive into them. Like talk about what experiences that you might have had that you really used these qualities, or what these qualities mean to you, or all of the above. And it doesn't necessarily need to be in paragraph form. It can be, you can kind of bullet point it out like an outline or something like that. But just take the next maybe about like 6 minutes. We'll come back at 2:35 to just go through these qualities and figure out what works for you.
You can also use what you started with right at the beginning of this. Like you could go back and reread what you typed there and see if these qualities are in there and how you could integrate those into what you've already started. That's another idea too. So 6 minutes, I'm going to pause the recording and we'll come back once you guys have a chance to do that. When you're ready, Kelly.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, and being able to express how those qualities and skills really have affected you throughout your journey so far is going to be really important when you're starting to build this. So if you ever get stuck, maybe go back to those and see, okay, how can I talk more about this? Maybe that can help you kind of get moving on that again. And then if you ever are really, really stuck, some other tools to consider are these ones right here. So the OWL Lab by Purdue, which I'm sure many of you have used for, finding out how to do APA and MLA format. I know I have. There's also the AAMC core competencies, and as well as our NACE career readiness competencies. So the AAMC core competencies speak mostly to not necessarily skills, but skills and qualities that medical colleges are kind of looking for when it comes to their students, and qualities that make the ideal physician potentially. And then there's also the NACE career readiness ones, which we use a lot in career services. And it covers things like critical thinking, communication, things like that. So if you need any phrases or need to think some prompts to think a little bit about that, feel free to go ahead and look at those core competencies. And of course, a good way to kind of outline what you would like to write about is learning more about yourself. So mind mapping, wayfinding maps, writing down where you have been and potentially even writing down where you want to be going. Doing values and strengths finding. So we do Strengths Finder at Career Services, which is an assessment that you go through and it gives you your top 5 strengths, and you can really reflect on what those might be and how they fit in to your life, as well as values, which are really, really important when it comes to reflection and knowing yourself and your goals. And then of course, journaling, which I know Erin is a huge, huge fan of, being able to journal your thoughts and your process. And then there's also us as resources. So Erin, Shannon, health professions advisor, other health professions advisors within the college, and of course, career services like Kelsey and I and some of our other career counselors as well. And then the Writing Center is also a really good resource if you haven't checked that out yet. They can be really helpful, especially with that like grammar and spelling side of things, just to make sure that part is good to go. Yeah, those are some other resources. Any other ones that anybody else can think of?
No, I just would add the AAMC core competencies. Yes, they're on the medical school page, but they're true to any profession. There are things like resiliency and grit, social skills, cultural competency. You as a dentist or as a physical therapist or a PA, you're going to need those skills. You're going to need those, and they're well defined on this website. Same with the NACE ones as well. So think about it. You're applying for a profession. You're not applying to a school. Yes, you're applying to a school, I know, but that's the short-term goal. The big goal is you want to be this person right? And so you need to kind of know what that looks like. So that would be the only thing I would add to that. Shannon, do you have anything else to add? Okay. All right. Shannon, you are up. I'm going to change the spotlight. Hang on a second. Why didn't it work? Oh, it did work. I just was being weird. Okay. Miss
Alright.
Shannon is going to talk to you a little bit about the to-dos and not to-dos. All right. Here we go. Style, do, speak formally. When you're writing your personal statement, you're not writing it to your friends. You're not writing it to your parents. Don't say dude or yo or what's up. Write professionally. Write in the second person. When possible, you're going to use the pronouns you, your, and yours whenever you can. And then write in an active voice rather than a passive voice. Like, I have a problem with this one because I think I'm the wittiest, funniest person in the world. And so I like to write wittily. And is anyone else in here witty? That guy. I know it.
Except for your witty might not be someone else's witty.
Oh, yeah, your witty might not be someone else's witty. We're still the
Hence the
funniest people
reason no
ever.
funny.
So no funny. Do not use the letter I, and don't ramble or be concise, or don't ramble, be concise. Make sure you get to the point.
Can we talk about the I one real quick?
Mhm.
So we're not saying don't ever use the letter I. We know you're gonna have to say I at least once or twice. But what's the difference between I did this, I experienced this, I saw this, I felt this, it's amazing, I did this, I want to do this, I want to be this, versus I got the opportunity to go to the Humane Society and volunteer my time, got to see the animals, work with the veterinarians, and I learned how many times did I say I the first time versus how many times I said it the second time, right? I used it, but it wasn't like a resume list, okay?
All right, some more grammar do's. Use specific labels. There are multiple kinds of doctors. Dentists are doctors. Physicians are doctors. And so make sure you're using the words physician, physical therapist, physician assistant,
So we're saying don't abbreviate PA.
right? Don't abbreviate words like St. Al's. Don't say I went to Boise State. You went to Boise State University. Don't say I went to BSU.
You can say, I worked at a hospital, you don't have to name the hospital.
No.
You could say, I worked with a physician or a dentist, but you shouldn't say, I worked with a doctor. Okay, because they won't know which one you're talking about.
Do not use contractions like don't. Aren't, isn't, do not, I am. Use contractions. This is a professional, formal paper. Make it look that way. Do not use quotes. You need no quotes at all.
So here's the reason why we don't use quotes. What are quotes? Somebody tell me what they think a quote is.
Something someone else said.
Something someone else said. So what do you have to do if it's something someone else said? You have to parenthetically document. You have to cite them because they said it. So guess what? You just stole all those beautiful characters away from that with the quote. Could you summarize the quote? Here's the rule of thumb I use. If you live by it, if it's your mantra, you say it every single day when you wake up in the morning, then maybe your quote belongs there. But could you have said it another way with an experience that amplified the idea behind it and not said the quote? If it's a well-known quote, somebody might hear that in your summary. Okay, so quotes, you need to be careful with whether you use those or not. The same with contractions. Contractions are not professional. Those are common layman terms. And you're writing to a professional physician and you're saying, don't do this, isn't. I will share with you whenever I read a person's statement, it's the first thing I go for. I go start highlighting all of them. Nope, 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 nope. Same thing with the word doctor. Nope, 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 nope. Drive you all crazy. You're like, you're using my characters here. And I go, well, let's say it another way. So that you don't have to do waste characters that way. Okay.
then do not use the word it, they, or those. Would you like to go into that one?
So I think the example kind of expresses itself. When you do not grow up in a rural community, it may be hard to find clinics and hospitals from which to obtain shadowing and observation experience. Then thankfully, many of those observing shadowing experiences are possible to obtain during the school year that works nearby Boise State University campus. For those, it's difficult to determine what those is. Are you talking about the rural community or the clinics or the hospitals? So you have to be careful when you're using those words because they're so general that we don't know what you're trying to amplify. Does that make sense? Did I speak to that, Kelly and Kelsey?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Next one.
All right. This one's super important, and Erin just spoke on it about keeping it positive. Why do you think you need to keep it positive? To go over what Erin just said. Anybody?
Why do you guys, what did I say about positive? Right? Positive is important because that's what you want them to see in you, right? You don't have to be a Pollyanna. Right? But you need to be proud of what you've accomplished. It's hard because we are humble folks and we don't like to put ourselves in the spotlight, but this is essential. You need to sound positive, not cocky. Confident, but not overzealous, right? Humble is a positive creature. But if you're like, oh, woe is me, I'm the worst person ever. Okay, so just so you know, most applications have an addendum place where you get to talk about a challenge. With COVID, it's become more prevalent in dental applications, and DO applications, and in supplemental applications for MD. PT has them as well, where you get to talk about a negative experience, but you always put it in a positive, challenging, resiliency, and grit way. I personally think this is one of the hardest things to write about in your personal statement. So I avoid it like the plague, no pun intended. I literally think it's essential that your personal statement be your most positive self person. If you have a hard time seeing yourself that way, ask others to show it to you because you're all beautiful. And I'm also proud of all of you. I'm happy to do that. But you want to make sure that it's positive. You want to be aware that don't talk about your grades in the personal statement. Talk about it in the addendum if it's an issue, right? If there's a reason why those grades exist, right? The last thing you want is your personal statement to spotlight your excuses, right? But you can do it. You just have to be very careful, and you almost have to have like 4 people read it to make sure it doesn't come off negative. It's so hard to do. You can involve lots of people to read it. Just, we'll talk about that in a second. But here's what I would also share with you. When I read them and when Shannon reads them now, that's the first thing I'm looking for is negative.
And
Those contractions are easy, right? I can go, boop, 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 then I can go back through and I'm looking for if you're negative to someone else. I'm looking if you're negative to yourself. And I point it out and I say, did you mean to do that? No, that wasn't what I was trying to do. Okay, well, let's try and fix that. Let's try and get it out. The best example I can give you, and I think it's an important example, is one of my students wrote in her first draft that she saw a patient in an 8R do something stupid. That was in the patient statement. There was no empathy there, none. And that wasn't her intention. She was talking about the team, how they banded together to try and save this person's life. And he ended up dying because he did something stupid. That's all I read was the stupid comment. That's all I read. And so she took it out, she fixed it, and it didn't sound that way anymore. It was a positive environment. Yes, someone died, but it was beautiful what she talked about in regards to the team because she wasn't so focused on the patient. Does that make sense? Next one.
Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, no worries.
Do you mind sharing this with me?
Yeah, it's recording, and anybody who was signed up in person or not, it's getting.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Go.
all right, more dues.
do have a clear idea of which 3 people should review it. We talked about this a little bit earlier with Kelsey, right? Yeah. So as she said before, the faculty members, professors, your advisors, those are great people. Family members are iffy, unless of course you have one of those parents that points out all of the everything about you and doesn't think you're perfect and wonderful and amazing all the time.
Think about voice. This is your voice. If you have too many people read it, you're gonna lose your voice, because if you take every single piece of feedback they give you, suddenly it's not you writing it, it's them writing it. Ian, would you agree with that?
To a certain degree, yeah.
You don't have to take all their feedback?
Yeah, you don't definitely have to take all their feedback. I definitely had more than 3 people read mine though, but they were all for different reasons. And then there definitely is negatives to, having too many people read it, you want it to be your statement, right? That kind of reminds me of when I was applying to undergrad, I was so focused on writing something good, like my dad and I essentially wrote it together. And I kind of regret doing that, because I wasn't really right. So I think it's important to identify people who could help you and then figure out what you need and then kind of go from there.
I had a student who had a medical doctor who'd been in the practice for over 40 years read her personal statement. And he totally tore it apart. He made her write it a completely different way, and she went a different way, and she applied to medical school. She didn't get in. And so she reached out to us and she said, I need some help. I want to have somebody go over my personal statement. And I read it and I went, oh my gosh, what's happening here? I'm like, what is this? And it was a complete resume. It was just like a bullet point almost of like all of the things that she had accomplished and done. And I said, is this what you started with? And she said, no. And she sent me what she started with, and it was beautiful. So what does that tell you? That doctor had no idea what the application process was like now. So be thoughtful and intentional in your reviewers' choices. And be what Kelsey said. Kelsey said, make sure they know what the feedback they're supposed to give you, why you're asking them to read it, and how they should read it. Okay?
Okay, who and what? Ask a person to review your statement in these specific areas: grammar and writing. Make sure there's no don'ts, won'ts, can'ts. We're super crazy on grammar, stuff like that, so please bring it to us.
Yeah,
Her.
her.
Me.
I want to be the last reader.
I'll read it
wanna be one of the
before
last
her.
readers, just so y'all know, that's where I want to be. I want to be one of the last readers. I hate doing the grammar. I want to get to the meat of it. So let me read it. If you want grammar, we have Shannon read
I
it.
love the grammar part. She can take the rest. It's cool. Have someone who's trained in what your medical schools are looking for. So if you're going to PA school, have a PA read it. If you're going to medical school, have a physician read it.
Or Kelsey or Kelly.
Or
who are
Kelsey or
on the call today.
Who are amazing and wonderful. And then have someone who knows you well enough, but not to the full extent. So professors are great. They know you, but they don't know everything about you. Your parents probably know everything about you. So again, friends. Whoa. Okay, examples of guiding questions to provide your reviewers. Does this sound like me? Does this showcase my skills well? What was strong? What was clear? What needs work? Just ask them to be honest and be able to take that criticism like we were discussed earlier. Okay. So how do you want to do this one?
All right. So I believe we have 2 students in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Hannah, are you able to go in a breakout room and talk to Lexi? Or are you guys on just the call listening? And same for Lexi.
No, I'm available to do that for you.
Lexi, are you able to talk to Hannah with your audio on and all of that stuff? Or are you in a place where you can't do that? Okay, Hannah, I'm going to put you in with Kelsey if that's okay. Until Lexi responds back. So this is the activity that we're going to do. We're going to have you partner up. So I'm going to have you 2 partner up, and I'm going to have you 2 partner up. And Hannah, I'm going to have you jump in with Kelsey if that's okay, Kelsey.
Works for me.
All right, so what we want you to do is we want you to think about an experience that you've had recently or an experience in general that you wanted, that has shaped you in pursuing this healthcare experience. You're going to spend 2 to 3 minutes each. So we're going to give you 6 minutes to share and describe that experience. But here's the key. We want to make sure that you answer the following questions. Tell them what it was. Tell them what it meant to you. And tell them what you're going to do about it next. What is that going to do for you? What did you learn? And how are you going to use that next? Okay. So I'm going to create some breakout rooms. All right. So hopefully you got some chance to talk to each other. That's another venue for springboarding. I am a firm believer in it. I am a talker. That is my jazz. Okay. I am a terrible writer, but I do a lot of great talking, and I can springboard and talk ideas with someone else, like my colleagues or my peers. And sometimes some of my best ideas come out of that. And when I do that, I feel so good because I feel like I have a direction to go with. So you get stuck, go find a friend, talk some ideas out. So we're just wrapping up that activity real quick, Hannah, and I was just talking a little bit about the importance of springboarding with someone else, about talking out an experience and describing something and having someone come back and say, okay, well, I think these are the most important parts of that experience, and having you reflect on those experiences and then go back and do that. So don't be afraid to set up an advising appointment or a coaching appointment with Kelsey or Kelly, myself or Shannon, and say, hey, I'm stuck. And I'll get my dry erase board out and we will draw a stick figure person and we will figure out who the heck you are. Okay. And we'll do that. Do it with your peers, do it with your family members. There are some really great applications out there. There's one called Otter, OTTER.ai. It's free for up to 600 minutes a month. You can record yourself and it dictates it into writing, and you can copy and paste it into things. It's my favorite thing to do in the car. I'll turn that thing on and I'll just start talking to, yeah, nobody's in the car with me, but I have a great idea and I can't vocalize it in writing, and I'm driving. So I'm like, blah, 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 right? And I can take all the blahs and all of the ums out, and I have something to work with that I can play with. I'm an audio person. So if that helps you all, think about that. But that's what this activity is meant to do. If you get anything from this presentation today, what I hope you get out of is that there is multiple resources for you to do this. You shouldn't do it by yourself. You shouldn't one-line it and call it. You should ask somebody to review it. You should look at it with multiple sets of eyes, not just your own. I actually had a student get feedback from the University of Utah School of Medicine one year. And so I had to call and get that feedback. And his personal statement was literally riddled with spelling errors. He spelled physician wrong and physiology wrong. No wonder he didn't get in. I was like, oh no. Okay. So this is your time. This is your chance. Ian and I are going to do this together. What questions you should be asking and what might be some frequently asked questions. These are me letting the till, okay? How do I reflect on my current activities? Is this a topic that I think shows something about the character or personality of me? Is this a topic that I've cared about for the last 1 to 2 years? Have I matured or changed in the last 3 to 5 years? Would I be interested in reading about this topic if someone else wrote about it? Does an attribute, a quality, or skill distinguish you from someone else? Likely. We all don't have the same smattering of skills. But what kinds of questions, Ian, did you ask when you first got started?
Just about myself.
No, just what I have to write a personal statement. What do I need to know?
Well, for me, I basically tried to lay out my experiences, and the kind of overarching question surrounding those is why do those matter to me? And I translate that to why will that matter to them?
Okay. So you went with your experiences, you questioned what you've done, and you tried to pull from some of those. Did any of your stuff come from like your kid life, your high school life?
I mean, I think, there's, regardless of when you have the experience, there's some sort of like defining experience of why you want to do what you want to do. Like that could happen when you're 5, that could happen when you first get to college. When I first got here, I wanted to be a pharmacist. Changed my mind, went back to what I was interested in when I was a kid, and that was disease prevention and diseases in general. So
Okay. What kinds of questions do you all have? Let's go. Questions about this? Tell me.
So I was trying to go more like creative writing style, like
Uh-huh.
for your speech. Should we stay away from that or just kind of balance between that and more of like, because it's hard to not, especially to like use, like not use I in a lot of those, like when you're trying to like. fix
So use I in the beginning
something.
and go back and look at it and see if you could reword it in a way where you're not fully focused on it.
okay.
There's a admissions committee member at the University of Washington Medical School that will count the amount of I's in the first paragraph. You go over 15, he stops reading.
Okay.
Now, here's the thing though, you asked about creative writing. I think it's a great question. Can I write in a creative way? Why not? I don't see any reason why not. If that's how you write, if that's how you exist, if that gets you in that reflective thought process, it's important. Make sure you're writing creatively about yourself and then you're not telling a story that isn't true. Okay, so don't go into fiction. Okay, here's the cool part. I think I know where she's gonna go. So you tell me, tell her what you want to say.
Oh, I was just going to talk about an essay that I saw.
Yep, that's what I knew you were gonna go there. I know which one you were talking about. Go for it.
The very first essay personal statement that I read, as an academic advisor, the student talked about hunting.
Talked about hunting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, hunting and killing a deer.
Talked about killing a deer.
And I'm from Northern Idaho, so this is only for fun. But not everybody likes to hunt and stuff like that. But the way he talked about it, he compared that to the techniques needed by a physician. And it was creative and beautiful, and his point as to why he wanted to be a physician was very thoughtful into that. So creative writing, absolutely.
So if there's something you're passionate about, a hobby that you love, there's nothing wrong with putting that in your personal statement too. He likes to hunt because it connected him to his father. He likes to hunt because he saw his father teaching him something. His father's not a physician. His father taught him skills, knowledge, and things that created who he is as a person. It was beautiful. And just so y'all know, he did get into medical school this year. So yes, you can write creative. This is your statement.
Okay.
What we will encourage you to do is have other people read it and make sure that you are in it, because that's what we're doing. Okay. I have some people who write very elegantly and it's amazing. Kelsey, Kelly, do you have any other points with that question?
Yeah, so I think it's something that I tell students to, when they're starting to do 2 things. The first thing, ask yourself the question, what do I need the committee to know at the end of my personal statement? So like, what are you trying to convey? Maybe go back to that first activity or that activity that Kelly led of, are there themes that you want to convey? Are there motivations, interests, et cetera? And then the other thing is to, which this may differ from other people in this discussion, but I encourage students to not worry about the word count at first. Not worry about, if you're too emotional in your writing or if it's too creative or anything like that. I say get it out. Just get it out. Don't worry about the word count yet. And then go back to how you answered that question of what am I trying to convey? Kind of check in with yourself, go back and forth, because again, this is for a lot of people the first time they've ever had to talk about themselves in 4,000 characters, right? And there's a lot to you, and it's hard to kind of figure out what needs to be shared. And so I say, don't necessarily worry about the word count yet, or worry about if the style is to this or to that. I say just try it and then go back to those questions of what do I need them to know?
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. It's easier to trim things down than it is to maybe add things to something that's already there. And another thing that I want to add just to that is it can be easy to get caught up in like self-editing as you're writing. And that can really cause a lot of writer's block, I think. So really, just like Kelsey said, like just blast through it, like write it out, worry about the editing later, including spelling, including grammar, including content. No one's gonna see this yet. So you can do whatever you kind of want to. Like, you're not live tweeting or anything like that while you're working on this. So be shameless when it comes to writing this at first.
Has anyone live tweeted writing a personal statement before? I would love to see that.
Hey guys, I'm gonna live stream my personal statement writing.
Gold star if any of you guys do that.
It is so much easier for you to describe something than it is for you to reflect. Even though we know the end result will be that 80% of your personal statement needs to be reflection and 20% of it needs to be description. But get it out. I call it the descriptive giggles. Have you ever giggled with somebody? I mean, really truly giggled with somebody when you were a kid. Like, you can't stop, you're laughing so hard to get to your pants. Okay, I do it with her all the time on SMS. It's really bad. But you can't stop, right? It's infectious. That's the problem with description, is it's infectious. You just have to do it, right? Just kind of, and you almost have to wear yourself out of it. So be okay with that. Use your pencil, your whatever you use to do it, write it all out. And then go back and read it and start to pull the pieces that are so cool. You're like, oh, I love that. And I love to do it to you. So when you let me review it, I'm like, oh, don't lose that. That's amazing. Right? And some of you are scared. You're like, okay, I don't want to give it to Erin or Kelly or Kelsey because they're going to tear it apart, right? And then I'm like, this is awesome. And you're like,
we'll be nice about it.
Hmm?
We'll be nice about it.
I'm very gentle, other than the fact that I'll be honest.
Yeah,
If
we
you
will
and I
all be
want-
nice.
I want the best for you. I want the best personal statement. And so you may hate that I made you write it like 5 times, but I want the best for you. I want you to see the way I see you. Okay? Other questions? Thank you for sharing that question.
Can I
Yes.
touch on something? I use I 30 times in my paper. So
Kelsey read them, not me.
It was a great personal statement.
It
Just
was a
with
great personal statement. Yes, but did you use them right after each other? Over and over and over and over again?
I don't think so.
I know you didn't. Okay, other questions? Don't be scared. We're not gonna fight. Yeah.
So, like, if you don't know the prompt, like, how should you start, like, brainstorming as far as, like, where your paper should go,
Okay,
like, before a prompt is released?
okay. So the question is, what do I do if I don't know the prompt and I want to get started now? Well, in most cases, you can look at last year's prompt and get an idea of at least the direction. In most cases, the prompts are delivered in a way that you get to showcase your best self and you can write about you. And honestly, until the prompt comes out, you can do just that. You can write about you. Because ultimately, no matter what you're doing, when you apply, you're going to have likely other essays to write. Ian, how many other essays did you have to write?
Let's see. Each school required a personal statement tailored to them based.
He applied public health, but
I applied to 6 schools.
so you had 6 personal
Yeah,
statements.
6 personal statements in various lengths. In addition to the actual, statements, you have to answer the prompts on your actual application service.
Yep.
Each school usually has additional prompts.
Yep.
Like, why do you have interest in the field of public health in 500 characters?
So what Ian's saying is you might want to have a lot of material to work with to begin with. So maybe that's where you start. But my question for you is, what program are you interested in applying to? PT.
So it usually aligns with a question that is very similar to the year before. And right now, the one that was the year before is give us an example of how you know what what the PT profession holds. So it's still why do I want to do this? And you can kind of go with that. You just want to make sure that before you put it in there, that you read the prompt and that answered the question. Read the darn question. Yep. So if you don't know for certain, you can ask your advisors. We know some of the prompts, and we can actually reach out to our committees, like we know the PTCAS folks. We can ask if they're going to change the prompt fundamentally. Usually I know by April what the prompt will be for PT. It doesn't open till July. Great question. See, those are great questions. You guys have them. Don't be afraid. No question is a dumb question to me ever. Yes.
So, like mine would be for dental school, but how would you know if there's an appendum section? And if there's not really a prompt to follow, like, is it good to just include our own appendum section if there's like a time that we were struggling, and then we want to talk about how we found like a positive, part of ourselves that we found from that.
Well, I'll tell you right now, dental will have COVID questions and addendum. They do on theirs. So I'm just going to answer that blatantly. You will hear from me when you meet with me personally. I'm a terrible writer. I know that about myself. I know that I cannot deliver a negative story in my personal statement well. I know it would be too hard for me, so I steer clear of it. I'm like, I'm just not going to talk about it. If you put a spotlight on something, they're going to go looking. Because here's the bottom line with GPA, when you're talking about GPA and grades, here's the cool part. So they calculate tons of GPAs, no matter what program you're applying to. They calculate a science GPA, biology, chemistry, physics. They calculate a math GPA, calculate a freshman GPA, a sophomore GPA, a junior GPA, an undergraduate GPA, a graduate GPA. They calculate a last 45 credits, a last 60 credits. They calculate all of those things. Your oops could be somewhere in there like a junior year, and they'll see it there, but they may not see it anywhere else because you may have recovered because of your trajectory. So do you really want to put it out there for them to see? Like, do you want them to go hunting for it? That's the question. I don't want them to go hunting for it. I want them to hear you grow from it if you're going to talk about it. But here's the thing. If it's a huge challenge that made you who you are, you should talk about it. But you need to do it right. And maybe Kelsey and Kelly and Shannon can help you do it better than I can, because I always can hear the negative in it. And so I'm like, oh, I just don't want to do it. I don't want you to do it. It's a risk. But the appendums are in the dental application. And in most application cycles in services, they are. There's an addendum. Tell us something you want us to know. It's usually in secondaries for med. For DO, they have COVID questions. They have 3. For dentistry, they have 2. So there's plenty of places for you to talk about a negative experience.
Is that like a separate thing from the personal statement that comes part of the
Yep.
application process?
Yep, it's a question.
And if anything, just like leave it out of the personal statement.
Exactly, if you can, unless
Unless it's a part of that shape.
yeah, if it is your shape, yes. And I think that you can get help from people to really write it. I always think, gosh, there's got to be something else that you could talk about in your personal statement that might be just as vibrant. So I would really be very cautious, and I can't stress enough how many warning flags I personally put up when we talk about grades in a personal statement. That's just me, because I've been doing this for 14 years and I just think it's a bad idea. Yeah.
So if the majority of who you are came from negative circumstances in your life, just like your kind of life, how do you explain that without making it sound, without at least saying this negative thing happened to you before you burned it in your pocket?
So I guess my thought process is this. Have you ever read the book Grit? Okay. Grit is about resiliency and the human nature of how we are all resilient to things that happen to us. And so the way I would probably start that question, so the question is, what if my life is full of negatives and that's exactly what shaped me? Well, then I would ask yourself, what about those experiences, taking away the fact that they're negative, ask yourself, what attributes did you get from those experiences that made you who you are? Like, did it make you stronger? Did it make you want to go out and do this for someone else? In other words, did it create empathy and compassion? Focus on those things and don't, and then you can weave the story into the negative attribute. You can weave it in after the fact. So ask yourself, what were the positive things that came from it? Because there are always positives that come from a negative experience, always, right? That's why we fail. That's why we fall down, is so we can get back up. And they want to hear about the getting back up part. That's what I
Erin,
love about talking about grades. Yeah.
I'm sorry, can I add something to that?
Yes, please, Kelsey.
It's like if you've ever had an interview question of like, tell me about a time you failed or tell me about your weakness. They don't ask you that to shame you, right? Like when the interview's over, they're not going to be like, ha 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 ha, the student has a weakness, right? No, they want to know if it's like a failure, time you failed, they want to know what came out of that. How did you overcome that? If it's a weakness, how are you working on it, right? They don't ask to kind of just like mock you, right? They want to know, okay, you have this situation, now what are you doing with it? And so sometimes when students have asked me that question, that's kind of what we compare it to, of like, what is the purpose of bringing it up? And like Erin said, right, if that shaped you, clearly illustrate to them why it shaped you. Make sure that you answer that question of what you're trying to convey to them. And then maybe when you give it to someone else to review, let them know what to be looking for, or ask them, when you read this anecdote, what do you get out of this? Just to make sure that that point is clearly conveyed and it isn't as much focused on the event, and instead how that event impacted you.
Does that help?
I think so. I think it's just like, using things to like not include the negatives, but I can list off all of the attributes and every way that it was a positive, but how do I say all of that without saying I am this because this happened?
So I can give you an example that might help. Had an individual who didn't realize that she had ADHD. Okay, she didn't realize it. So she stumbled through life without support, right? And when somebody finally said, you know, I wonder if you should go try and get this resource. She did that. She went and got the resource and she just they diagnosed her. They went, yeah, sure enough, she's got it, right? And then we started problem solving. We found out she was terrible in a lecture style class because there's too many noises to distract her. So we put her in online classes. Poof, grades went from to quickly, right? It was what she needed. She applied to public health program, Boston University. And her personal statement, she didn't talk about how terrible it was that she had ADHD and didn't know it. She talked about when she decided to ask for help. When someone told her it was a good idea to ask for help, and what it meant to her to get that help and to realize that she's normal because everybody has stuff going on in her life. She talked about it that way. She didn't go into the details of every little nuance of the negativity issue. She talked about how she grew from it and how she now is a better learner and how she wants to help other patients. Like she wants to be in a public health program to help educate other people. And she did, she got into Boston University. And so what we're saying is we're giving you the extremes. And what we're saying is that this is your personal statement. And we're going to support you, and we're not going to tell you, here's what I would say. You could, the hunting example, that was a risk I was willing to let him take because he did it so well. And so it's a matter of you sitting down and writing it out and trying out a couple of things to see what makes the most sense. And you might go, nope, this doesn't make sense. I can't do this. It's not going to work. And I need to focus on something else, right? Or you might pull it off and we go, let's do it. Let's risk it. Because what's the worst that can happen? You don't get in and then you have to rewrite a personal statement anyway. That might be a good segue, a good important thing to know. So if you apply to medical school or public health school or wherever you want to go, PA, PT, and you don't get in, do you use the blanket personal statement that you wrote the first time?
No, you don't. You rewrite it completely. Now, there might be some themes and things that you keep. There might be a story that you just, it's you, but they've seen it before. And you've grown in 1 year, so you want to write something new. So I'll say what I said at the beginning. Don't marry this thing. Be okay with making changes to it if you have to. And you'll get something beautiful out of it. You are all beautiful people. I know you are. I've seen you. You're smart. You're well done. Thank you for the question. Did that help? Cool. What else? We got room for 2 more questions, I think. You go home and whip out a personal statement, right? No. Journal first. Journal first.
Are they looking for more just like one, theme of something? Or is it okay to be a little more like paragraph on this, paragraph on this, paragraph on this? All of these things.
This is why I love you, Wyatt. You go right where I need you to go. So the question is do I write on one topic, just one topic? Or do I write on a whole bunch of topics to have multiple paragraphs leading into different ideas and different themes? Yes and no. So here's what I would say. You could write on one theme. You could. Gentleman wrote about hunting, how it compared to being a physician. That was one theme. Okay. Keep it simple, stupid. If you have 5 stories running in your personal statement, by the way, these are like a page long. They're like 5,300 characters. Characters, not words. Characters with spaces. That's like a page, page and a half, page and a quarter. Okay. Some programs don't have limits on the characters. Some programs do. PT, it's 4,500. Med, it's 53. Dentistry, it's 5,000, I think. I think they upped it. So you need to be concise with these if they have a limit on the characters. And if you're writing multiple stories and nothing's transitioning or connecting, you have multiple personal statements. That's not okay. So you want to find a balance between the two. If you want to tell multiple themes, how does maybe one story tell multiple themes? Hunting example, okay? Or do you want multiple stories to tell about one theme or 2 themes? Triangle is one of the strongest shapes in the world. It has 3 points and 3 sides. So I think 3 story, I personally go with the rule of thumb that more than 3 stories is going to get too complicated. Or more than 3 themes, it's going to get too complicated. Mm-hmm. So that's just me. And you don't have to take my word for it. I tell everybody.
What you did, not you, but the student asked the question, sorry. So that's always a tough one, right? Of like, what should I include? The should question comes up of like, should I do this or should I do that? And I gently encourage you to ask yourself, like, what's the point with each narrative that you want to tell? Like, ask yourself, I want to share these 5 stories. Why? Like, before you even start writing, I say, write down why you even want to tell those stories. What's your motivation that you're trying to convey? What's the exposure you're trying to convey? Make sure you understand why you want that in your personal statement, and then you can kind of figure out if, where, when, how that weaves together. So it's not just about like listing all these accomplishments, because remember, you've most likely got a work and activities section, or you have your resume. They're going to see all of these things you've accomplished. So make sure that this is not just prose version of that, and it's really there to add on to give this whole picture.
So hopefully I answered that question. Is there any other questions? Because I just want to add one extra piece to this. And that is 85% of the application is writing. Your personal statement, your reflective descriptions of each of your activities, okay? Your essays and your secondary applications. The rest is I got to enter in my college work, and I got to put my demographics in, and I got to get my tests done. 85% of it's writing. And so that's why I recommend journaling so much, because the more you get out, the more your words are on some piece of paper or something that you can take and start to mold and move.
And here's the cool part. Once you get the personal statements written and the experiences written in this way, in this reflective thought process, it'll make those secondary essays easier. Because then you won't have, you have so much material to work with. You're like, oh, I could tell this story and this story. I couldn't put that in my application, but I could put that in this essay, right? And you're going to grow as you apply because you're going to be still doing everything you're doing anyway, and you can talk about those things in your essay. But now you have a process, right, of journaling it out and getting it into description, getting it into a reflection, and getting it into something that means something to you. I actually have a student who kept all of their stuff. Crazy people, yes. And he ended up using some of it when he applied to residencies. So, okay. All right. Well, that's all we have for you today. Hopefully you got resource. We really want to thank you for this time today. We know an hour and a half is powerful and you could be using it for other things, but hopefully this was informative. We ask that you fill out our exit survey. So the QR code's right there for the exit survey. So if you could complete that for us, it just helps us be better at doing this. And if it doesn't work, I can send the link to you all as well. So, and that would be the same for the Zoom folks. If you could do the QR code, that would be great. And then I'll be sending it to the recorders. If you watch it as a recording, please give us some feedback. The more feedback we have, the better we can make this presentation. We will be uploading it to YouTube, posting it to our website, and sending you the slide deck, the handouts, and the video. So you can always review it. And I found out that Kelly, and Shannon talk slow enough that you can watch it in 1.5 and still understand us.
That makes me feel so much better at the speed at which I present. So thank you for that, Erin. You just gave me a much needed confidence boost.
All right.